Welcome back, guys. We are here at TGX in Melbourne and we are talking to Andrew. Now, Andrew, what is the name of your game?
The name of the game is called Dolven.
Dolven.
Yes.
Now, first off, I love your outfit.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, I got it from Temu. So it's amazing some of the stuff you get.
Yep. Well, that's true. Can you tell us a little bit about your game?
Absolutely. So Dolven is a tactical RPG. So think games like maybe XCOM or Baldur's Gate sort of style.
Yep.
So you're moving characters around a grid and you're fighting against enemies. Now the other thing about it is it also has a card deck builder in it, right? So you're playing cards as you're moving them around, the characters around a grid. And to top it off, it's not kind of like your typical card game where maybe it just buffs a character or debuffs them. You're actually playing a game of cards, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, if you think games like poker or gin rummy, those sort of games, you can form hands. You can do that also in here. So you can get like pairs, straights, three of a kind, flushes, and they all give you rewards. So you get extra mana, for example, to play more cards, or you might draw a new card or something like that. And you're also playing against a boss. So that boss can also play cards and form hands. So they might go and get three of a kind or whatever. So you've got to be careful where you play cards because quite easily it can change the game, and you end up sort of either tipping one way and losing, or maybe get overpowered in some other way. So yeah, that's kind of how it all works.
So the card play of it is like a double-edged sword. It's like
it is.
You don't want to play too much just in case, but at the same time, it's like
Exactly. And you would have seen in that clip we just saw there. There's only one row of pillars at the bottom, and that's where everyone plays the boss, and you play the game, right?
Okay.
So you might put down a 2, then the boss puts down a 2. And you get 3 of a kind with your 2, but he might have another 2, which means he gets 4 of a kind. And
so you've got to be really strategic.
You've got to be strategic. You can quite easily get burned,
Yeah. So what's the level progression look like? So we're fighting against the boss, and what's sort of the progression through those fights?
Okay. So it's quite a deep tactical game, all right. So we try and put people in. Nice and easy at the start, right? So the demo, which is out now, it'll take you through kind of a couple of rooms, which are more tutorial rooms that teach you how to play it. And then you'll start getting into the battles. Now, the first dungeon, we've made that relatively, easy so most people can get through it, at least the general public. Not too easy, because it gets too easy, it gets a bit boring.
Yes, yeah.
So we've definitely made that sort of a transition. Now, when you get into to the second dungeons and the more biomes going forward, you have to be quite strategic in what you play. So, for example, there is what we call the Nemesis Triad, which is in Dolven, where strength beats dexterity and dexterity beats intellect. And they're the suits of the cards, but they're also the archetypes of the characters themselves.
Okay,
right?
Yep.
And so if you play an intellect card on a strength character, it won't do much sort of effect. But if you do play it on an intellect character, it will. Okay, so you've got to think about where you play your cards, but you can also change your deck. So, for example, a dungeon, the entire dungeon, might have mostly intellect-based characters in it, so mages and clerics, right? Which means you want a lot of dexterity cards so you can buff your rogues to take out the mages, right? So there's that kind of progression you've got to think about as you go through it. The actual, in terms of the gameplay, it's mainly sort of like a dungeon crawler.
Yep.
So it's got a storyline. You'll go into rooms that are, different sizes, different size grids, and you're fighting against the boss. You're basically going through all these biomes to try and defeat the evil necromancer overlord. I don't want to give too much away about the story. But it's definitely one that has a very interesting twist, sort of moral twist at the end. But I'll leave that there. I don't want to give away too much.
You'll have to play it. You'll have to play it to see it.
That's right.
So there's a lot involved in it. Obviously, it's very strategic. You've got the card avenue of it. You've got the actual dungeon moving, and then the deck building style of it too. it sounds like a strategist's dream. Yeah, exactly. So
I could think of other things to say there, but yes, definitely.
Yeah. So when it comes to the card building and the deck building, do you gain more cards as you progress along?
That's right. Yeah. So the first room that you play, you can collect cards there. It's sort of a puzzle room. So again, I don't want to give away too much, but you collect sort of cards there. And then we've only just recently, in the last couple of months, added a respite room. Now in the respite room, you can do a number of things. You can edit your party, so you've got 3 or 4 characters. There's 6 classes to choose from, so you might not be happy with the classes you want. You want to swap them in and out, so you can go and edit, recruit or exile players. You can also edit your deck, and you can also select from there's like a mystery box there, and you click it, and 3 cards appear, and you get to choose which card you want to grab. And so it's that kind of, as you're progressing through the dungeons, you'll get gear. So there's a whole gear system as well, where
in depth. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So you can collect gear which adds to your attributes. There is also going to be traits on the gear as well, which will affect your cards.
Yep.
So maybe if you've got a particular shield, it might buff your strength cards, those sort of things. And then as you go through, there's also a skill system. So each character has their set of skills. You can upgrade those skills. There'll be new skills that come in. So that's kind of how it goes. Yeah.
So it's really a build style game.
It is.
As you're progressing, you're trying to think about your build, what's going to benefit the next room.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we sort of, one of the first things I did before I started making this game was I went out and asked people, what do you like about turn-based games? You know, there was a couple of kind of responses to that, right? So the first one was that people like the idea of just being able to play a turn, go and make a cup of coffee, come back, and then not have to be sort of flat out, glued to the screen with the action games, right? So I completely understand. Mind you, I do love sometimes being glued to the screen and, and having a crack at things. But the other thing which I thought was interesting was that people love to kind of find out different builds and ways of getting overpowered in those builds, right?
Yes.
And so we're trying in the game to sort of have those avenues available where you might want to have a really kind of tight agility, dexterity, rogue archer kind of a party and deck. And so how do you go about making that deck, and making it so it's still, fun to play, where you're not just destroying everything, but still gives you that feeling of power and being able to dominate. A lot of the people kind of said, I like going to rooms where I'm getting smashed, and then pick up some new cards, whack on some new gear, and then tweak it so that I can defeat the dungeon.
Yeah. So, and I agree. When it comes to those sorts of games, I love getting finicky about learning which pieces of gear have the synergies, or
getting that extra 1%. You know.
It's I don't know. There's something amazing about it, especially when you find that good, and so then from then on, each room you go into, you're like, where's that card? I need that card. And
then like sometimes you might go into a room, and whatever the build is that you've done, the computer will counteract it. And then it's like, smarty pants. Now I've got to go and do
now I've got to
something.
figure out the next thing. Adaptability. It definitely makes games more interesting when you, because like you said, if you can build a build at the start of the game that just overpowers everything,
a bit boring.
It's a bit boring.
Gets a bit boring.
But if you have to adapt at each crossroads or each room, then it makes it a little bit more fun, because then you got to think forward. It's like, well, if I add this to my deck, what's that going to affect me in the later run?
And it's interesting. I was just talking to one of the other devs today about how maybe with the customization of the decks in the game, you could get into a position where, because we were talking just before about how you can make card like hands in the game, right? So you can get straights and flushes. Now I thought, well, why don't I just make a bunch of dexterity cards, and I'll get flushes all the time, and I'll get heaps of stuff. And then I thought, well, actually that won't happen, because the boss will have their own set of cards that will counteract you. And so you'll be trying to make flushes, but he'll just dump down, different coloured cards and counteract you. You know what I mean? So it's really interesting how it's kind of all come together and sort of really kind of just emerged to be something that's, a new type of game. And so really, really happy with and proud of what we've got. And the team's done a wonderful job.
So speaking of card games, this weekend is this the first time it's been at anything?
Yes.
So this weekend you brought along an actual physical card game at Dolven as well.
That's right. So that's called Rune's Gambit. This is the first time we've showcased it at any convention. So if you are interested in coming down and being the first person to play it, come down to TGX. It's open till 5 or 6 o'clock or something?
6 o'clock, I think.
6 o'clock. So come down and happy to take you through the game. It is kind of based a lot on the video game. Obviously, there's a few differences, but it's really kind of been fascinating to see how people have jumped in there and started playing it, and we're learning as well, like how to talk about it and how to express how it all works. And so this is the first time. It's a deck builder. So think games like Hearthstone. I've been playing way too much Marvel Snap lately as well. So a lot of influence from those sort of games. And basically, you can think of it kind of like a card battler. It's a little bit easier and simpler than Magic the Gathering, for example. It's kind of a bit easier to get into and understand. But we've added some really interesting things in it. So we actually started with a simple prototype where we cut up a bit of paper, just wrote down what the cards did, and we played against each other. And then we made actual physical cards, and then we played against just family and friends and stuff and sent it out a bit wider. Did another iteration, and then we added in this new deck, which is called a fate deck, because we found we were playing each other and we couldn't beat each other. We got to the point where it was like an hour, and we're like, crikey, is this game even going to end? So we added in the new system, which is kind of like the poker system in Dolven, where you can form hands, and those hands, instead of giving you extra mana, you can draw a fate card. Now, these fate cards change the game, so it might destroy one of the opposition's cards, or they get to play 2 turns in a row, and it can completely switch up the match.
Which, like you said, it can change the tempo of instead of sitting there for 3 hours going. That's right. It changes the tempo
and makes it exciting, and makes it sort of like And one of the things which I think is really important in any game that's made is that it has to evoke emotion in the player, right? So now that emotion can be many things. It can be, it can be laughter. It can be fear. It can be excitement. This one, I noticed that, it's kind of like poker, where you get really angry if you lose. Like you get angry, but when you win, it's like woohoo! You know what I mean? You get really excited. So. There's definitely that sort of aspect that's come out of it.
That's fantastic. It's looking really good. As I was saying to you before, I've seen a lot of people that have been across there, and when you walk past, they're really into it. Like, they're focused on it. They're really trying to learn, which is always good to see for a new card game. And they look good. The whole area looks good.
Well, we're really lucky, and big thanks to TGX, the Game Expo crew as well, because they've obviously noticed that we've got the card game and the PC game, and they've put us straight together. The whole indie section here is like right in the middle of the place.
It's fantastic.
So I was just absolutely stoked that they've really thought about it. And then last night they put on drinks for us upstairs. We probably had too many of those, but it was really nice of them to do that. So
it was good, and it was good to chat to everyone as well and have a bit of a hangout. So moving on a little bit, where did the idea for the game come from?
Okay, so I got to go back a fair while because I got the grey hairs. But when I was a kid, I loved card games. In fact. We had a little beach house. My parents had a little beach house down in Blairgowrie, which is down the coast here in Melbourne. And no televisions, no radios, just nothing down there. In fact, we used to get the candles out. There was, sometimes no electricity down there. And we play card games, right?
Yeah.
So we play Gin Rummy 500 for the game 500 for the older people out there. Hearts, Solitaire when we were by ourselves. And I used to love it. I used to love playing those games. And I still play them today. So I have every sort of Saturday night when I'm not doing anything, a couple of mates I get together with and we play poker and all that sort of jazz. It's really the social aspect I love of it.
Yeah.
Like sometimes when we're playing poker, we'll be chatting about something for half an hour. So I go, whose turn is it? Oh, whose money's that? Oh, we end up sort of getting through it. So loved card games all my life and still do. And I've always loved turn-based games. Even when I was a kid, there was a game called Rogue, which was on the old IBM 386. And I remember seeing that, thinking, how the hell did they make that? And so I went rummaging around. I was at my grandmother's house, who's got a computer. I ended up with that computer anyway when I was younger, but rummaging around the house, and I found this book, which was a book called Basic, which is one of the first programming languages. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to have a crack at that. So, here I was, 7 or 8 years old, learning how to program games, and making the computer do things. Admittedly, I managed to completely wipe the BIOS and destroy the whole computer, right? But I got it back and running again. Reinstalled the BIOS, flashed the BIOS, and I installed the operating system. And I tell you, that was the best feeling, getting it all back together. And I sort of look at it as almost like a bike when you were a kid, You learn about riding the bike, but you also learn to pump up the tyres, oil the chain, tighten up the handlebars, all those sort of things. And this is kind of like a bike for me. I love riding. I love riding bikes. I love looking after bikes. It's the same thing with computer games. I love making them. I love the kind of experience that the players get out of it as well. It makes me feel great to know that they're having a good time as well and giving us the feedback. So, I guess it's those two things, is the turn-based games, the creation of those games, and the love of card games. That's what's kind of brought them together. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's so cool that it's kind of progressed from such a young age to coming up to now.
Yeah.
I bet the feeling of seeing it like this is phenomenal.
It's incredible. Like, I didn't even think I would be able to come to a conference and do this kind of thing. I thought, it was years off. But when I was first making Dolven, I was just making it by myself in my own little room, thinking, it's just going to go out there, it's going to go ballistic, everyone's going to love it. That's not how it works in computer games. You've got to be able to capture people's attention, which is hard these days, with social media and all that sort of stuff. You've got to get out there and talk to people. You've got to meet people and kind of, network.
You're putting yourself out there just as much as you're putting your game out there.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And I remember about a month before PAX, I'm sitting there plugging away, and my wife comes up to me and she goes, "Oh, what are you working on there?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's just a computer game." "Oh, that looks good." She immediately went back to her computer and booked us into PAX, right? And it was like, "What are you doing?" Like, "We're not ready yet. We're not ready." And like, "Yeah, you'll be fine. I'm like, "No." But she booked it in. She spent the money. I couldn't get out of it. And so, ended up that, we a lot of late nights, but we got the first room done, and I met a whole bunch of people there who work with me today on it as well. So we got Mike from New South Wales, TKFY, we got Trent from Swinburne University, my wife. We work obviously with other contractors that help us out. So if it wasn't for places like this, I would never have got to the place where I am. So
these things are fantastic. Like the cons and the indie scene, it's so good to see. You notice that all the different developers are chatting to each other.
Yeah.
There seems to be
it's
friendly
a little community,
banter.
man.
Yeah,
for
it's
sure.
so good. It's so good.
Absolutely.
How long have you been working on the game?
In its current form, because like when I first started it, like every developer, I started making an MMO, because I was I was a corporate web engineer, still am. That's what pays the bills. If you want to do something lucrative, do something boring. And so I've worked in a whole bunch of different corporate environments, and I thought, I'm a web engineer. I've had 30 years experience. I'll make a game like that, you know, MMO, piece of piss, you know, easy. Jump in there, nah, it's completely different.
Not as easy as
it's not as easy. It's actually one of the hardest things you can do, right, at game development, because it's got everything in there. You know, you've got sort of physics, you've got maths, you've got, you know, art, you've got effects, you know, music, all this sort of stuff.
Sound engineering, landscape like this,
heaps of stuff in there, right? And you can't do it all, right? I could probably do the networking bit, but that's the only bit I could do, right? And so I kind of got to the point where it's like, all right, you got to make a choice here. You got to scope it down. So I moved it into not an MMO. So it used to be a third person. I've still got the prototype, so I might resurrect it one day. But yeah, it's converted into this grid-based system, and you know, as I've explained, the love of, you know, the turn-based system and the cards. That's when it came to me, and I'm like, all right, let's turn this into something that, you know, I want to play. That you know, that I think if I like it and I enjoy it, and the people around me do it, and hopefully other people will too.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you need to make something you're passionate about, you like.
Yes.
If you're making something for the sake of making something,
it's not the same. It's not the same.
Exactly.
And Dolven, we're going to do the release this year, but it'll be something that'll be just one of the steps going forward, right? So we've got a lot of plans for it. The one that we're releasing now is actually the second part of a 3-part story. So we've still got another 2 parts to tell. And we've still got more to do with version 2. So it's going to be a long road, but it's all about the journey, man.
Yeah, that's it.
You know?
If you could do it in a flash, and it's all over in a second, it wouldn't be as fun.
It wouldn't be as fun, you know.
It wouldn't be worth it.
It's the same. I mean, I admit I'm a bit of a nerd. I still play WoW sometimes, right? And it's the chasing the gear that's the fun bit. When you get the gear, it's like, oh, where's the next bit? You know what I mean?
I've heard that, and that's why I don't play WoW.
Yes, that's right.
I need my time.
I do.
But no, you're correct.
I haven't played it for a while, especially leading up to these events. It's like, no,
stay away. Yeah,
delete.
Yeah. I'm the same with grindy games.
Yeah.
My one was Destiny.
Oh, yes. Yes, I played a bit of that.
It was the loot chase.
It is.
How do I get to the next level? How do I get the next gear?
Exactly.
No, I fully understand that.
Yeah.
So what has the development journey looked like for you?
Yeah, so I have to say I've probably had a bit of advantage coming from, you know, startups and corporate development, right? So often I talk to other developers about how they do things that haven't been in those environments, and I don't want to sound like I'm trying to be, you know, critical or anything like that, but I do notice that they miss a lot of things that I do in the development process. So, for example, I ask a lot of other devs, do you do test-driven development? Which is basically, it's kind of a methodology where you write tests first for your game. So let's say, for example, you want to see if a card plays correctly. You'd write a test first that would fail because the card hasn't been made yet.
Yeah.
So you'd write that test first, and then you'd write the software that would then, you know, make the test pass. You know, a lot of people don't even write tests, you know, and so the issue with that is that, you know, you might change something in the game that would then break something else, and you haven't got a test to check if that works, right?
So then that's where a lot of bugs come out of.
A lot of bugs, you know, so I spent a lot of, it's kind of a bit different, I guess, to a lot of other people, and I shouldn't say a lot, I should say the people that I've spoken to, you know. I'm sure there's other people out there that do it, but people just don't seem to kind of start with that side of it, and I decided consciously to make those tests, but also to make tools that would help me scale.
Yep.
So, for example, the dungeons are all procedurally generated, which means I don't have to sit there by hand and make all the dungeons.
All the dungeons, yeah.
They just get built for me. The gear is extracted, like the gear properties, the gear look and feel, the colours. They're all extracted from the models, so I just need to drop one of the models in there, and I've got a routine that'll go in and make all the gear for me.
Yeah.
And so I don't have to sit there and make all the gear. You know. Same with the cards. I've got basic sort of templates for the cards. So I can just say, here's a configuration. This is the way it's supposed to move. This is the effect it's supposed to do, and it'll make the card for me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So investing a lot of time for the first sort of 6 months in that means that later on, or meant later on, I can build up the rest of the game easily. And I actually have a live stream that I do every Saturday. Sir Covine is the name of the stream, hence the gear. So, last weekend I went through how quickly we could make a new biome. So we've got at the moment you would have seen that clip there. We've got the dungeons, but we've also got forest, we've got snow, we've got pits. Now again, that's all procedurally generated. So I just need to say, make me the pits, and it goes and builds the whole thing for me. So
beautiful.
Doing that stuff early has been great.
It's exactly what you want to hear, because I can't imagine sitting there and having to redo stuff.
People do,
constantly.
People do, and there's games where, especially linear games, where there's really no option but to do that.
Yeah.
And so that's where the millions of dollars goes in. You've got to hire 100, artists to
redo.
To build all the characters and that sort of stuff. So yeah.
Have you had a moment that has made all the work feel worth it?
Yeah. So the one that pops into mind is an email I got after the first packs where I was stressed as all, and I just thought, the game got played a lot. And I got a email from a lady who played it, and she said to me that she really loved the game, she loved the experience, and she will definitely buy a copy when it's out, and she wanted to support us any way that she could. And I was just absolutely blown away with it. I thought anything from now on is just icing on the cake.
Yeah.
Because I've reached my goal where, at least for that person, and I want to do that for everyone, that plays the game. I've reached the goal, which is really the company goal, is to kind of have the games inspired by the fans who play the game, and that that give us the feedback to be able to make it better, And so that was like a moment of like, okay, this makes it all worth it. I'm having fun, people around me are having fun. It's a journey and it's an adventure.
Yeah, that's it. It's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no point having a game and then no one ever plays it, or you just sort of sit at home playing it by yourself, going.
No, that's right. Yeah, I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine. But I think we're social creatures. We connect.
Yes.
We're talking today, and I think that's what really gives you that kind of, high, I guess. Maybe it's just the chemicals in your brain. I don't know what it is, but that's what gives you the motivation and the passion to do it.
That's it.
What I mean? So.
We've spoken a little bit about it already, but what makes the game unique?
Yeah, so I would say definitely the hook is the card play. So having the deep tactical kind of card play in it.
Yeah.
So the poker element is something that most people, I kind of say, it's a tactical RPG. It's got a card deck builder in it, and you can form hands in it like poker. And they're okay, that sounds interesting. So it's something a bit different.
I will admit the mix of the different elements of it is something that I've never heard of before. Yeah. It's something that I can see working really well. I've just never seen it in this fashion before. So.
No, me neither. So usually, like a lot of those card games, like Slay the Spire, there are a couple that are sort of similar. I think the closest one to us is probably Gloomhaven, which is not a huge one, but it's relatively successful. They do a similar thing. They've got a grid-based combat. They've got a card system, but again, they don't play the hand. So it's kind of an extension of something that already works. Hopefully that kind of will appeal to people that already play that sort of genre.
Yeah.
So,
what are you most excited about players experiencing in the game?
Yeah, so I think it's, as I kind of alluded to earlier, I've sort of found this as we introduce more abilities and gear and cards into the game. It's the feeling of being powerful, going through those dungeons, arcing up a real big spell, destroying your enemy. The other thing that's really interesting is we're starting to add in some cards. We were talking about the physical card game just before, where one card can basically change the game.
Yeah.
So that has also been something that's been exciting for people. One card we've got in there called Torvis, right? Which, by the way, all the card names have got meanings. And
If you
so
there's more behind it.
Yeah. If you read up on the names of the cards, chuck them in Google. You'll see what they kind of mean. So I won't give it away, but if you want to do that, go for it, including the name Dolven. Anyway, so if you play these cards, so Torvus, for example, will destroy a random tile underneath the character. So that actually destroys one of your characters, and so, but it's a random one. It could be your one, or it could be one of the enemies, right? Yeah. So it's good in a position where you've got 3 enemy characters and one of your characters. That's a higher chance of the enemy character being destroyed, but it could be your one. So you've got to be careful. So those things have sort of brought out a lot of emotion again in people as well. So
which once again is good to see. Yeah. How can people support the development of the game?
Okay, so I think the key for us right now is, we really, and it's probably a bit of a cliche, but wish lists mean a lot to us, right? Yeah. So if you can jump on Steam, type in Dolven, click the wish list button. I would say that, only do it if strategy games are kind of something you're interested into at the moment, or interested in general. I think just wish listing it because you want to support devs is probably not the greatest thing, because we want to eventually convert those to sales, to be 100% honest. That's what we want to do. And so if you're not interested, that's cool, not your game. We do have other games that are going to be coming out soon that maybe might be up your alley. We're doing a survival horror coming up in the future. So
okay, you've caught my attention.
So in fact, there's a whole story about that I can tell you about at some point. But if you are into any kind of tactical games or card games, give it a go. There's a demo up there right now that you can play for free. It's only a limited time as well, so we've got it up for the next 2 weeks where you can play through the full dungeon. We're going to scale that back to only 5 rooms soon, so if you want to get in there, jump in and play it now. But yeah, the other thing is that, as I mentioned earlier, I do a Twitch stream every Saturday morning. My username is Sir Covine, SIRCOVYNE, Sir Covine. Got the crown. Sometimes I wear the crown as well, if I'm feeling a bit happy that day. But I actually code the game and I show it off, and sometimes I get distracted by 80s music. People start talking about 80s music and that's it. I don't start, or if somebody says, come and play this game with me, I go play it. But for the most part, that's a great way to connect with me as well and ask me questions about the game. And I've been in the industry now for, as I said, about 30 years. And so if you're interested in game dev, I've also been involved in management and people leadership. And so I'm absolutely happy to answer questions about the journey in technology, whether it be gaming, startups, corporates. I've done them all, been there. This is where I have fun. So happy for people to come along and chat there as well.
There you go, check out the stream.
Yeah.
The last question of the day.
Yes.
And one of the more important ones. No, it's
I've
not the
heard
more
about this one
ones.
and I was trying to think about it. All right, we'll give it
If
to
your game was a coffee or tea blend, what 3 flavors would it be?
Okay, so I had a big think about this one. The first one would definitely be a dark blend, and that's for the deep strategy gameplay. The second one would be a mushroom blend.
Okay.
And that's for the dank dungeons.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the final one would be a dash of chili. And that would be that if you don't play the right card, sometimes you can get burned.
Perfect. I'm not sure whether I'd try it just with the mushroom part, but the rest of it sounds good.
You ever tried the mushroom coffee? My wife definitely swears by it. So
really?
Yes. Have a crack,
I love mushrooms.
Have a crack.
That might be something. Okay.
Yeah.
You might have convinced me. I'll give it a shot. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm looking forward to seeing more of Dolven. Card games are right up my alley as well, so